a strong preference for pre-Labor Day. Again, they are the yellow and gray, and we'll pull out that information and the parent information in slides to come. Staff preference doesn't appear to be driven by where they reside. So one of the things that I did share in our earlier conversations is that where do they live chart, and showed you percentage-wise, do our staff live inside or outside and where do they live. But here you'll see the yellow and gray in combination, both in and out, don't seem to have mattered. Parents also seem to have or appear to have a strong preference for post-Labor Day. There was a low incidence of those who identified as community or none, and the overall preference, as you look at these data, just on its face, is for a pre-Labor Day option B start. And the total number in that category is 444. Respondents voted that as their most favorite option, and post-Labor Day B had 406 as the most favorite option. So let me pull back a little bit and pull some of that information out, just to kind of share with you a little bit further some observational information that we can glean from these data. The first is this is the parent respondents, and when you look at this, this is how they rated their most favorite options. So 113 parents rated pre-Labor Day option A as their most favorite, 223 pre-Labor Day B as their most favorite, 145 post-Labor Day A, and 284 is post-Labor Day B. There's a pretty, not an even distribution, but there is not as significant a variation between the post and pre as you'll see with the staff, and I'll just sort of preface that as we look at these. But parents definitely appear to have a stronger preference for post-Labor Day. Staff, on the other hand, have a very strong preference for pre-Labor Day start, and again, it doesn't seem to matter where our staff live. So here you will see staff number one preference for pre-Labor Day A was a total of 39. In the next chart, you'll see in pre-Labor Day B, it was 136. And then working across, post-Labor Day A was 15, and post-Labor Day B was 31. So I share those just sort of in contrast, and I'll just flip back because I think it is important to see the contrast. Not that it's a steady split between and among, but it does appear that it's a starker contrast for sure with the staff as a pre-Labor Day start. When you look at the first and second favorite options combined, and this is what we did with the parent population first, is you will see that 42%, and that's taking the two bars on the left, 42% of the parents prefer a pre-Labor Day start. That was their first and second option, while 58% of the parents preferred a post-Labor Day start. And that was, those are the two bars on the right-hand side. And if you juxtapose that to the staff, again, a stronger preference for the pre-Labor Day, and you'll see that 76% of the staff prefer a pre-Labor Day start, while 24% of the staff prefer a post-Labor Day start. So it's again, it's quite a contrast. So I'll end with this final slide again, which was the very first slide, and this was the first data slide that showed what the overall results were. And as we go through this, one of the things that I hope was evident was that while there was a pretty significant split among the teachers wanting a pre-Labor Day versus a post-Labor Day, it was not as apparent among the parent population how wide of a split. And so as we think about that, and I think about representing the work of the ad hoc committee, representing staff, because I am the superintendent who represents the staff, and I think it's important to remember that, and knowing that the staff's preference and the overall preference of everyone who took the survey, and everyone who you've heard from in the calendar emails had a chance to weigh in on the survey just like everybody else. There are also some considerations in here that I want us to kind of think about and contemplate, and that is that there are more days of instruction in a pre-Labor Day start. And if you ask any teacher from top to bottom, what is one thing you'd like to have more of before the assessments that are given, whether it's SOL, IB, or AP, every single one of them will say to you by the person, I wish I had more time. So a pre-Labor Day start does provide more instruction prior to the high stakes state, national, and international assessments. When we look at how these different schedules work for breaks, the pre-Labor Day B and post-Labor Day B, to be perfectly honest, do have more balanced quarters. The teacher work days align better to each other, and the professional development is distributed throughout the quarters that allow for our staff to learn right along with our teachers, because one of the things that we know from the research is that when staff are learning, whether it's through professional development or collaborative time, the likelihood of their students learning goes up. Pre-Labor Day B option, I think, creates better alignment with regional calendars. So when we think about integrating the interdependence among the different communities, that alignment with regional calendars was important to the committee. It was one of their top 8 drivers, and this pre-Labor Day option B certainly provides more alignment with those regional calendars. It provides a solid window. This pre-Labor Day B start also provides us a solid window to open a new high school. And I can't say it strongly enough that we really need a 2-week break at the winter holiday to be able to move into the new George Mason High School. And then the last point I want to make, and it's sort of a little bit more philosophical, but maybe not so much philosophical, and that is that we received a pretty important report from Dr. Julian Williams from George Mason University not too long ago that talked about our work in the system around equity. And one of the messages that was loud and clear, I thought, in the equity report was that intentions aren't good enough, that we need to do more to support the students that are on the margin, to provide more equity and more access to our curriculum. And I think that the pre-Labor Day B option provides demonstrative evidence that we want to provide more instruction prior to assessments that we're holding not only ourselves accountable to, but the state is holding us accountable to, International Baccalaureate is holding us accountable to, but that more instruction that we can get before those assessments really provides a better start for our kids that are traditionally marginalized. I had an opportunity to hear from an old friend, I think, of the systems, former school board member Joan Wadiska, who also sat on the State Board of Education recently, who shared with me just a reminder that the state of Virginia started to provide waivers across the state to do pre-Labor Day starts because they were finding that kids that were marginalized weren't meeting academic standards as well as they could if they had more time before the state assessments. And I think it's something that can't be lost in our conversation as well. And I think it was evidenced, at least in the data, when we look at what our teachers really want as well. So for those reasons, I would like to recommend to the board that you consider for adoption the pre-Labor Day option B start. So as we think about that, and we also think about moving forward, there are a couple of things I want to make sure that I put out there, and that is that this is not a locked calendar. This doesn't mean that we're going to start, if you were to adopt this calendar, it doesn't mean that we would start on the 24th of August every year going forward. Each year we take into consideration where Labor Day starts, where Labor Day would fall, and quite honestly, this is in some ways sort of new territory for us, because remember, this is the first time we've ever been able to have at least the option of starting before Labor Day. But the calendar could change every year. We're not locked into a particular date. We would take that into consideration each year. We have heard that some folks would really like us to do a calendar earlier to help families plan, and we're certainly interested in looking at supporting families that way as best we can. To the extent that we might even be able to do a 2-year calendar, it may be something that we could look at into the future so that parents and families can really plan. And the last comment I would make is we recognize that if the school board were to adopt pre-Labor Day B, that there are some families that have contacted us that have said that they have plans for the summer, whether it's an overseas vacation, camping trips and the like. And I just want to make sure that if the decision is made to move with pre-Labor Day B, we would work very closely with those families to ensure that students had a smooth start. If they decided to continue with their vacations and came in a little late this first year, we would work very closely with the families to accommodate as best we could, because we know that there's a lot on the line for some of those folks. So with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it back to you for any questions from the board that you all may have.
Okay, so I'll open it up to the board for discussion. If anyone wants to go first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Noonan, and thanks to everybody on the calendar committee who put so much hard work into this. I'll keep it short. I think the case for pre-Labor Day B is a strong one. We received several emails today that I thought were emphatic about the equity aspects of this, and I don't think you can deny that more time up front is better than some extra days in June. So I'm very convinced that Labor Day B, pre-Labor Day B is where we should be. So.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Anyone else like to go next? Mr. Webb?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for me, I've been kind of wrestling a little bit with this, of trying to figure out and look at the options, and then taking into consideration some of the emails and comments that I've been hearing about the process. First, I want to also thank the calendar committee for all their hard work that they put into this. But I guess a couple questions that I have. In general, are there many other school systems here in the Commonwealth that have the 2-week winter break?
I would need to go back and do some research, but I would say that at least the surrounding jurisdictions that I work most closely with as part of the region do have a 2-week winter break. In fact, one of the major school systems directly next door to the west has made it a policy that they will have a 2-week winter break.
To add to that, Arlington County's calendar survey said that all of their options in their calendar survey had a 2-week winter break. They stated in previous years, stakeholder input demonstrated strong support for a 2-week winter break, allowing families time to travel and allowing students and staff sufficient time to recharge. All 3 drafts maintain this, given that our neighboring jurisdictions who have approved calendars have also adopted a 2-week winter break.
Thank you, Ms. Michael. And then the other that you mentioned within your comments, Dr. Noonan, are there other school systems in the Commonwealth that do their calendaring in 2-year chunks versus as we do with 1 year?
There are a couple of school divisions that I'm aware of that do 2 years at a time, and we certainly could work through that, I think.
Okay. That's one comment I would like to, as you know, would definitely like for us to potentially look into of doing, because it does give a little bit more of the planning opportunities for families here in the area. And kind of looking at the options out there, the pre-Labor Day option B is starting to look a little bit more attractive to me in that the equity piece. I do think that some of our at-risk students do need that additional time to get prepared and be ready within the school year, making sure that they have enough time preparing for testing and those other areas as we go out through the school year, and making sure that they are as competitive as all of our students here in the system. Then 2, and you've made this statement several times about the potential pre-Labor Day start, maybe the next time go back to a post-Labor Day start. I want to go on record that if we go pre-Labor Day, I do not want to do the back and forth between the two, because I think that will cause more problems than what we're trying to figure out now, swinging back and forth. I understand that there'll be times where Labor Day may make a difference of when pre-Labor Day we may start.